Welcome to the next episode of the Iowa Girls Wrestling Stories podcast. Today I have Kaitlin Hatcher, who's an assistant wrestling coach in Solon, Iowa. We met a couple weeks ago at the AAU State Girls State Tournament. Had some nice conversations, and you get to work with a good friend of mine, Jake Munson. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's Sunday scaries for a teacher and coach, but
I
we're making it through. So,
and I see you're in your classroom. So what grade level do you or teach at?
yeah. So, at Solon, actually, I teach high school science. So,
Ooh.
alongside coaching, I get to teach science to some of my wrestlers and, of course, lots of other students as well.
Science was never one of my strong points. So my senior year, I was fortunate enough to we had kind of biology too was a kind of a open study type thing. So some people dissected cats, some people did this and that. I went to the greenhouse and we grew plants and stuff. So it was during wrestling season, obviously during that winter time, and it was warm in there, so it was nice. So what are some fun things we do in the science department at Solon?
Yeah, so I primarily teach biology. So we do some dissection towards the end of the semester, but otherwise, you mentioned the greenhouse. I just got done teaching a botany class as an elective, and so back in my back office, I have some plants growing. We focused a lot on hydroponics this year, so growing plants without soil,
Oh
where they
wow.
get their nutrients all from the water that you provide them. And so it's kind of a stand up, like the light kind of looks it's like a sun in the back room, to be honest. It's super bright. But we grew a whole bunch of lettuce back there. And then towards the end, experimented with some tomatoes and bean plants. So our bean plants are just starting to produce beans. And then I have the first blossoms on our tomato plant to hopefully produce some tomatoes before the end of the year. But it was a really cool experience for my botany students because we got to grow these plants from seed all the way to adult plant, and then we got to harvest them from our hydroponics chamber and send them right down to the kitchen below us, and they got used in the lunch line. So it was really cool for them to see the full circle.
Yeah, that is definitely cool. Something that we didn't get to do. Well, I guess I did get to grow plants, and it was good because the ladies in the office absolutely loved us because every time we got flowers or plants, we'd bring them down to them. So I got away with a lot of stuff my senior year, walking halls but um, coming up, we have the Twin River Duels, and I convinced you instead of helping Mark to help with the coaching. Have you gotten in touch with your team yet, or
Yeah,
it's
so just recently we got into our Facebook group, and so I kind of got to introduce myself on there. And all of our girls were introducing themselves too. So I am coaching the Liberty Elite, and it's a youth team. So it'll be some younger girls than what I do during the season, but I'm excited to coach them, and it seems like they're all really excited to wrestle. So. It'll be a new event for me. I haven't been out to Twin Rivers yet, so I'm excited to see all the competition and to see all these teams and all these families and all these people that are just excited about girls wrestling.
Yeah, it's absolutely one of my favorite events. I've been doing it since about year two of it, and that's it. And coaching at it, I've coached all the levels of it. The youth coaching can be difficult because you got from like second graders to eighth graders, but it's probably one of the funnest divisions to coach just because you can have some pretty big impact in just 2 days. Um, are something you're really anything you're nervous about that maybe I can help you with, or um,
I don't think too many nerves. I think just, from the coach's perspective too, like living up to expectations. So I'm pretty gosh darn comfortable with our team and our philosophy and our, like culture. And so meeting all these new parents and wrestlers and other coaches, in the weekend, and then hopefully meshing well with them would be the only thing I'm really nervous about is meeting those expectations. But that's a constant thing for me with coaching. living up to expectations. So
Yeah, no, that it's probably one of the funnest times you're going to have just because it is a test for a coach because you're taking a group that they don't know each other and you don't know them, and then you're going to turn them into a team, and it's amazing how quickly that happens with the girls. And then if you can throw some little bit of knowledge on, it used to be, and we've divided into a couple different divisions now where we have some development going on and also some all stars. So there's a little difference. But I used to end up in the place where I'd always say, my job is to make sure these kids feel good about losing today. And that's kind of how I even gained a lot of my coaching philosophy. But let's go into the coaching because we're not typically, you were not a wrestler and
correct. Yeah.
stuff. So how did Jake convince you that you needed to be in the wrestling room?
Yeah. So, a little bit of my background. When I was in high school, I was a wrestling cheerleader. So, I really didn't know a lot about wrestling. Wasn't a huge wrestling family growing up, nothing like that. But I really wanted to cheer. And I couldn't cheer in the fall because I played volleyball. And so when wrestling cheer sign up came around, I signed up. And then ended up loving it and got super involved in the wrestling community all throughout high school. Jake always gives me a hard time and says I should have managed instead because I love that side of wrestling now. But um, so having that background and being passionate about wrestling, knowing about the sport, I came back to Solon after college to teach here. And as soon as I got hired, Jake was on me. He's like, because he knew me from he was here when I was in high school as well.
Yeah.
And he was on me right away, like, hey, do you want to coach? Do you want to come coach with us? Like, we're doing this new thing. Like, we'd love for you to coach. We think you'd fit in really well. And they always tell you your first year of teaching not to sign up for anything extra because teaching your first year is hard enough. So I was really adamant and said, I don't know, I'm not ready yet. And then he was right back on it the next year when we were when we were back in school. And so he yeah, just supported me in getting a conditional license. He was like, the state is doing this thing where you can get a conditional license, try it out, see if you like it, and then pursue, your coaching license from there. And so I did. I kind of was like, yeah, I'll come. And he's like, well, if you just want to try it like one day a week at first. And I was like, no, to be fair to it, like I've got to go 100% in. Like that's what we ask of our girls is to come and tr give it 100%. And if after giving 100%, it's, not for you, then that's where it's at. But I was like, I've got to give it 100% go and try. And so came into the room on our trial practices, didn't know any of the moves that they were referring to. But that first season, I kind of signed on and got to learn right alongside our girls. And it is one of the most awesome experiences that I've had in my life. So, yeah, wouldn't change anything.
Awesome. I've always thought it would be interesting to have coach similar to yourself because I never know, girls sometimes don't want to speak up and say, "Hey, I don't get this. I don't understand this," because they really want to understand it. They want to do it right. Um, but maybe they're a little embarrassed and speak up because they don't know that four other people in the room or don't have a clue what's going on either. So I've always thought it would be nice to have a coach, and maybe you can speak to this. And has this been your experience that when you don't get it, you're like, "Hey, Jake, I'm not sure what's going on here," and then about four others really benefit from that.
Oh yeah, for sure. If people don't know me or haven't seen me on the mat, I am a very loud person. I'm very outspoken. I'm usually that crazy coach in the corner that's, yelling and everything. So I'm that way in the practice room too. So yeah, for sure that first year when there were things that I didn't get or things that I didn't understand, that's just my personality to not hold back. And so I would ask questions. I would say, we need to see that again. And so kind of to bridge that gap between the girls and some coaches that maybe are more experienced, it was definitely something that I experienced in the room as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what has been the biggest challenge, I think, to you, other than just being brand new to it? What has been the biggest challenge?
Um, oh gosh. Uh, Personally, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but personally, I think that my biggest challenge has been, wanting to live up to expectations
Oh,
and
yeah.
at times dealing with imposter syndrome. So the feeling that like I never wrestled, so why am I coaching these girls that are wrestling now? Or these girls that have more experience than me? Why am I coaching over some of these more experienced guys and these more experienced coaches? Who am I to have this spot or this opportunity? And so that has been, I would say personally, the biggest challenge that I've faced in my years of coaching is like giving myself permission to be a part of it and
Hmm.
like knowing that, I'm not going to be perfect all the time either. But I'm learning just the same as my wrestlers are and just the same as other coaches are, even, right? And so, yeah, that's been one of the biggest personal challenges that I've kind of battled with in my years. Season wise or sport wise, one of the biggest challenges, and I know that other people experience this and would say this too, is just how new girls wrestling is. And so it's in the last several years just been constantly changing. And so, like managing those changes, some good, some bad, positive moments and challenging moments of change for our teams and for our sport. That's been another, big challenge, to navigate as a coach as well.
Yeah, what some of the things you just said with that imposter syndrome, I think almost any coach has that. I was an assistant coach the majority of my career. I started in 1999, and I've only been a head coach for 5 years. And that first couple of years, like, man, I don't know if I really belong doing this or not. But I think as you give of yourself and the kids see that you're sincere, and it all works out. And I've always said to other coaches, and maybe it's a little different because you weren't in the situation, but I always say just be that person that you needed when you were their age or in their situation and stuff. So you weren't in their situation, but you were a teenage girl at one time. So
Yes.
you know exactly. And that's one of the challenges for us male coaches, is we were never teenage girls, so we don't always know exactly how they think. And I've tried very hard to understand that. I had daughters, so it's maybe not as hard for me because I've gone through a lot of those things anyway. But yeah, it's really important to have that female presence in the room. Have you seen that like with Jake and stuff? Does you see that maybe you're helpful in a lot of situations that he just doesn't feel comfortable?
Oh yeah, for sure. I cannot express enough the impact of having a woman on coaching staff for these girl teams. I think that having exactly what you just said, having someone who's been through being a teenage girl before, and I mean that comes with all the, taboo things about periods and all the taboo things about like nutrition and how it's different for girls than it is for the boys' teams sometimes, but also the aspects of like emotions and drama and like teammate drama versus, like boyfriend drama and like drama between other teams and all kinds of stuff. Those are aspects that you know, don't always pop up on the boys teams or they pop up in different ways. And so having a female on your coaching staff that can kind of see it from that perspective, I think is huge. And that goes for managing situations like that, but that also goes for the way that you run your practice room and the way that you, teach your skills and the way that you coach in the corner before and after matches, right? Like girls just process things differently than boys do, and they um, like interpret things differently and they respond to
Uh-huh.
things differently. And so having, someone that can recognize those things, and not to say that male coaches can't, I think that having daughters definitely helps. I think that, having been in relationships with women helps and that sort of thing. It's just an added level of, kind of being seen and heard to have a female on coaching staff. And there have definitely been instances where like Jake will say certain things in a post-meet, huddle or whatever, and I'll have a conversation with him afterwards and say like, I don't know if the girls are going to respond to that the way you intended them to, or like maybe let's phrase it like this next time instead. Um, but yeah, so definitely a huge impact of being a female on a coaching staff. And that's not to say that, like the men don't do that exact same thing from the other perspective, right? Like
Yep.
I have been so fortunate to be on this coaching staff with Jake. And when I started with Zach Betchika, and then, like TJ Bevins helps out with our team. And our coaching staff just always meshes so well. Um, from me fulfilling that kind of female role, but then Jake does such a great job with the organization of our team and the communication piece and kind of supervising all those things. And then we have great technicians that come in and support on that side too. So yeah, kind of everyone filling in those different roles.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask a little bit how Jake and your roles differ and how it's all meshed together. Because I know Jake in a different setting, being on boards and stuff with him, and he seems like such a super nice, quiet guy. But I'm gonna guess maybe he has a different side too. But how's the dynamic between you and Jake in the room?
Yeah, I think that it's such a fun dynamic. Like we are so similar in a lot of ways, but we really balance each other out. So, where you might see Jake as not being as loud, I am a very loud person. And so a lot of times when we're in the corner together, he'll like reach over and he'll tell me what to say, and he's like, "Say it, she can't hear me, say it." And so like I'll yell. But we also balance each other out a ton in the sense that, a lot of the same things stress us both out. So, wanting to do well, but, wanting to say the right things, making sure that everything is right how it needs to be. But the ironic thing is, even though those same exact things stress us out, it's almost never at the same time. And so there will be certain meets or certain tournaments where he is just stressed out. Like he, isn't sleeping well, like just texts me at random times saying like, is this right? Like, and I'm just like, as chill as can be. But then other times I'm the one that's freaking out and super stressed out about all the little details. And he's the one that's telling me and reassuring me and reminding me to chill out and just let it happen. And so we balance each other out really well in those ways. And I've learned a lot from him in that sense too, of some of those other skills that he's really good at, that organization of the team and, like keeping track of stats and all of that stuff. I've learned a ton from him behind the scenes too, from working with him. So,
Yeah, I believe I've heard both from Jake and from Mark Kenny that you're pretty darn good at track wrestling, and it's something you really enjoy doing with track wrestling. I think I even talked to you a little bit about maybe helping Allie next year somewhat with some of that too. So
oh yeah,
how
if
how
I
did
could
you
work,
get how did you get where track wrestling is something you enjoy? I absolutely hate track wrestling,
oh my
but
gosh. No, if I could work a table every day of my life and get paid for it, I'd do that in a heartbeat. I just love it. I love you know, the level of detail that goes into track and learning about wrestling so much so that you can, to some extent know what's going to happen before, the refs even call it. I just love doing that. Um and yeah, just the detail that goes into it. I kind of got into it in the sense of uh, I'm also a busybody. So the other
Mhm.
thing you should know about me, I like to be doing things. And so at meets during downtime or at the boys' meets when we're there to support, like I don't want to just sit there. Like that's very hard for me. So
Uh-huh.
I would go ask if I could sit at a table and watch what's happening and things like that. I do the same thing. So we have several of our girls that wrestle in the off season. And before I got into coaching at Twin Rivers, I would go just to watch them and support them out of season. And a lot of these meets, teams are responsible for providing their own table workers. And
Yep.
so I kind of just walk myself up to the coach and say, like, hey, do you
Mm.
want me to work your table so that the parents can enjoy watching their girls too? So
And
I
nobody has ever turned you down, have they?
not yet,
No,
not yet.
no,
No,
because no one
no.
will ever turn you down for that little piece. I guarantee that.
Well, I think it's so important to have people that are, when possible, to have people that are passionate about it because the
Yeah,
track side of things is so crucial for supporting a match too, right? Like having someone that's passionate about it and is going to make sure that it's done right is
yeah,
extremely helpful for supporting our refs. Mark and Nadine always try to be on my mat when I'm working a working an event. Because it does just make that difference of if they can trust who's at the table too and know them and know that they're, paying attention and on track, that's
yep.
huge. So,
So you just mentioned Nadine.
yeah.
What do you think Nadine's impact is on your girls' team? I know what it is on our team and stuff, but what do you think Nadine's impact on even just your girls have has been?
Um, I mean, I could talk forever about her impact. I think
Yeah,
that seeing a woman out there reffing is huge. I mean, she's outside of just our team, she's had an impact on women reffing and
yep,
supporting growing the number of females that are out on the mat in that sense too. But she does such a fantastic job when she's reffing of being more than just a person in a striped shirt out there, right? Like she interacts with the girls, she makes them feel comfortable, which is not something that always happens when the girls walk out on the mat.
yep,
And with a sport that's already so challenging mentally and physically, and walking out on a mat, like, yes, you're part of this big team, but when you walk out there, it's just you. And so having a smiling face that is out there welcoming you, comforting you, someone that you can trust to keep you safe. And not to mention, we keep going back to it, but a woman out there, right? Like
yeah, yep.
that's huge. And our girls just love her. Whenever we get to see her at a meet, there's smiles on their faces when we walk in. So,
Yeah, I book Nadine every year for the very first weekend, and so I'm excited to always get her. Yeah, and then last year she did that referees clinic for us. So she certified six officials, and I can't wait to see the impact of like this generation of girls that are in college right now. This group of 4 to 8 years, their impact of coming back to coach and to
mhm,
officiate. I think we're going to see
absolutely.
a lot of things, a lot of really big things happen. And you're going to see the impact like Twin Rivers. Last year I believe we had 30 some female coaches, and it's a lot of a lot of college girls learning and dealing with parents, and that's probably the hardest part of our job is dealing with
Oh yeah.
parents sometimes, honestly it is. Um, what are some future, where do you see yourself in the future in the sport and everything? So,
Yeah, I definitely see myself involved, right, in the future, one way or another. I mean, I've kind of diversified myself in that sense that, I have a background in coaching, but like we talked about, love working tables. I have helped out at tournaments in different aspects, from volunteering and working tables to, selling brackets, all kinds of things. I am trying to learn more on the tournament side of like setup.
mhm.
I
I
also have
think
helped.
if you did learn more, I think you could almost make a career. I mean, obviously Matt Shannon's made a career out of it. I think you can Mark Kenny makes a lot of extra money on the side running tournaments throughout the year too. So man,
Right.
it's important to learn. Go, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry about
No,
that.
you're fine. I also have kind of become the awards person at our youth tournament. So, I've been helping out with our youth program the last several years too. So, all kinds of different aspects of being involved. Nadine talks to me almost every time I see her about making the jump to reffing. So, you never know when that might happen, but to some extent, timing is a limitation, right? So,
Yep.
um, with teaching, the schedule is pretty demanding. And so, that kind of limits how much I can get involved, especially during our season when I'm coaching. But yeah, definitely uh, making the effort to get involved wherever I can here and there outside of season as well. So
Nice. And I'm, gonna see if Jake actually pays attention and watches this one. And I had told you earlier, that you're already orange and black. So I pulled up
yeah.
a couple of my singlets here. We
Oh
have this.
yeah.
This is their championship singlet. I think, could you support? Oh, and then here's our varsity one, or our normal meet singlet. So
There we
maybe
go.
maybe orange and black on the other side of the state. Jake, I'm gonna try to steal her. No, I kid, but no, I I'm excited. I really enjoyed meeting you and stuff and talking at the AAU state tournament, and I'm excited maybe to see your maybe we'll pull you into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But let's move into the Iowa Girls State Tournament,
Yep.
just because we were both there and it's an exciting time. Um, were there something that you really did? First of all, Extreme Arena.
hmm
What do you think about just arena itself and the environment of for girls wrestling?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm kind of biased because we've been super spoiled with where we're at in the state. The corridor area, so North Liberty, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, we have kind of become this hub for women's wrestling in the state. And so we're super spoiled to have that all happening near us. So selfishly, I love Extreme Arena as a setting for girls wrestling.
Uh-huh.
I think that now that we've made the move to two classes, I think that it is just the right size for where we're at right now, to support our fans, but also to, support our girls, that we have the space we need for, warm-ups and practice and that sort of thing, but then also that designated space in the arena for the big lights. I cannot speak enough for what the girls' union does to make that experience special for our girls, between all of the little details, the pink everywhere, and
Yeah.
the brackets, and the tickets that they get from qualifying. All of those little details might not seem important from the outside, but for our girls, that makes a world of difference. And so, I think that that has been huge for our girls at the state tournament. We've also been very, very fortunate, our team in particular, that we kind of get some experience in extreme before the state tournament. So we've been fortunate enough to wrestle at some tournaments there earlier in the season. And so our girls, being so close, get the experience of seeing what it's like to wrestle on a big stage like that
Yep.
prior to state. And so to get some of those nerves out at a earlier tournament has been great for us. Um, but yeah, love having the state tournament close. The girls might complain that, oh, we don't get to go sleep overnight. But the impact of being able to sleep in your own bed at night when you're wrestling every day for a couple of days is huge. So,
Yeah, it really is. You mentioned some of the details that the girls' union does, the pink chair in the back. I always, I love taking pictures with the girls back there. But the one thing that and I don't know if the guys do this or not. I don't think they do, but every single one of them gets a medal, or like 2 years ago, it was a coin, a really nice large coin participant in the state wrestling tournament. That's something that I think is a really neat little addition to everything, just to be honored to be the top this year, top 16, before being in the top 32 in the state, both classes, is pretty cool, just to even have something little to remind you of that, and maybe show your kids, 20 years down the road, hey, look, I was a badass.
yep.
Yeah. Anything, I know a lot of people think it's too crowded there. I would hate to walk. I love the noise. I love the chaos of that. Just the finals is loud. The even day one and two is loud. Selling out doesn't seem to be a bad thing to me. I'm used to, I grew up in the vets auditorium time when things were right on top of each other. And you're way too young to remember doing tournaments there, but boy, that was fun. That's why I get in mind that. But going to like a Wells Fargo, would it be quiet in there? I don't like, I'm not a fan of Wells Fargo anyway, but all right. we'll get off that. Well, I know one of the things that Jake and I just got done discussing this last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, dual state tournament. And I know it's not coming next year, but down the road we're going to have a dual state tournament. What's your thoughts on having a dual state tournament at same spot in Coralville?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think if you want to continue to grow girls wrestling and support girls wrestling, I think that's the next logical move. I think that we talked this a couple years ago when we started wrestling actual duels instead of just scrambles. But at some point you're gonna have to make the jump, right? And so that's really happened over the last couple of years here. And yeah, are there gonna be teams that have opens? Of course, right?
Yep.
There's always going to be that. But um, it puts the pressure on, recruiting and
Hmm.
building those teams and figuring some of those things out, slotting girls in where they fit, that, the boys face all the time anyways, right? And so I think it's an awesome idea. And I think our girls have been itching to do it, for the last couple of years since we've kind of built our team up to fill most
Yep.
weight classes. So um, I think that this is the other thing I'll say. I think the dual atmosphere is so different than a tournament too. When we go on Saturdays and we wrestle at tournaments, our fan section is awesome. Like, don't get me wrong. And our team does an awesome job. Our girls do an awesome job of anytime they're not wrestling, finding the mats that their teammates are on and being there to support them and cheer for them. But when your whole team is sitting on a mat and you're wrestling weight by weight by weight and racking up those team points, it is just a completely different atmosphere, a completely different mood setter for our girls. And I think they love that. They
Yeah.
love being able to not just wrestle their match, but visibly wrestle for their team, right? And so to provide them a state tournament like that, I think would be awesome.
Yeah. The other question we spent a lot of time on, 16 qualifiers or 24. What do you think?
Um, I am a huge fan of giving more opportunities. So I would love to expand it to 24. I would love to see more girls go. Um, Now, that's not to say that everyone should go, right? But if we can expand to 24, then absolutely. And I think that what we saw this year was splitting to two classes that, it wouldn't be too much of a bigger stretch to go to 24. So giving those extra girls the opportunity to be there, I think would be amazing.
Yes, I will 100% agree with you there. I'm hoping we'll see what happens. I know that they have their board meeting sometime in April, I think, and then we'll find out from there all the directions we're going. A lot of new rules this year. While we were, with the 3-point takedown, the out of bounds rule, the way it was. I've recently started asking this question: is there something that is there a call that gets made that you absolutely hate? And you're like, oh, I wish we could change that stupid call. And I'll tell you what mine is, and then maybe it'll help yours. So, I understand safety of an athlete, and anytime that this happens and we're underneath, this is the full Nelson, and I don't understand how that actually isn't, you know what I'm talking about, barely touching. I think that's a horrible call, but I know it's called, so we have to teach it that way. But is there something that just is like, that's the cringiest call I can think of?
Yeah, I think that mine would be probably the edges of, like potentially dangerous. In from the sense that, you know, watching a lot of men's wrestling or boys wrestling, it seems that they are a lot more lenient with some of that than they have been with the girls. They're a lot quicker, in my opinion, to call that on the girls. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for safety. Like, I do
Yeah.
want you to call it and stop it if it is dangerous. But there are some times that, you just wish you could see a move play out as a coach. So I guess that would be mine, just to some extent allowing that little bit of more wrestling and seeing how things would progress. But that'd be mine. So
Gotcha. let's step away, not necessarily step away from wrestling because there's still a lot of wrestling talk about this, but let's just get to know you better. And easy questions, hard questions. I mean, there's nothing hard about this, so just easy questions. We'll start simple. What's your favorite color?
Oh, well, that's a loaded question. Um, I probably should say orange, but orange is not my favorite color. I'd have to say probably red or yellow.
Red or yellow? Where'd you go to college at?
I went to Iowa, so the red is a hard,
Oh,
hard
oh,
comment for
that's
me to make, but
red and yellow. I was almost thinking you were an Iowa State grad, but
oh
no.
no.
Well, we won't hold it against you that you're a Hawkeye. I'm kind of more of an Iowa State person, so you'll see in the back, which on this side over here, I have my Dana College singlet, which was also red, but that was a
Yes.
much smaller school. That was a school of 600 people. You probably had classes of almost that. So, but um, one of my favorite questions because I love pets. If you could have any pet, anything in the world, I used to say cat or dog, but I've really expanded that out because we've had a lot of farm girls and some just
Oh
different
yeah.
ones. What would be what would be your ideal pet?
Um, oh gosh. Probably, I don't know. I think it'd be pretty cool to have a big cat. So like a lion or a tiger. I think if you raise them from itty bitty, I would hope they would be cuddly. So
Well,
I
did
think
you
that'd be
watch
pretty.
The Tiger King?
Oh yes. Oh yes. I watched it.
So you might need to move a little farther south. But yeah, I mean, have you seen what are the cats? They're huge house cats. You know
Yeah.
which one I'm talking about? I've been in a house that had one a person that had them. They're huge. They're probably 30, 40 pounds. And they're kind of like look like a little lynx or something. I can't remember the name of those.
Yeah, so there's several. There's Maine Coons can get pretty big, but they're really furry. Um, which are related to the Norwegian forest cats, which get huge. But then oh gosh, yeah, I can't think the one that you're thinking of is much leaner, right? It's
Yes,
hot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Real long tails. I can't think of it. It'll
Yeah.
come to me later. That's all right. A lot of times I ask this question of wrestlers because we have the post weigh-in foods and what did we miss out on? But I'm pretty much a foodie too anyway. So what's the guilty pleasure food? What's something that we got to eat? We got to
Oh my
have, we
gosh.
got to love.
Anything Mexican food. So burritos, tacos, anything with queso on it is done deal for me. So,
Nice. Is there anything that you absolutely will not eat?
um, I am not a big seafood person, so I don't eat a lot
Really?
of seafood. Yeah.
Oh, man, I absolutely love seafood. It's pretty tough to find something that I won't eat or try. So it amazes me sometimes some of the things that people will say. Seafood is amazing to me that you wouldn't, because I love seafood, but that's all right. Are you a movie buff?
Um, to some extent, more so Disney movie buff, but
Loved it. So what's some of the favorite Disney ones?
oh my gosh. So my go-tos are like Oliver and Company, or Emperor's New Groove is a good one. But
Yeah.
some of the more recent ones have been really surprising me. So I hadn't seen Coco before, and I watched that a couple
Yes.
weeks ago. It
Hmm.
is so good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we watch a lot of Disney. I have two grandkids. Actually, I have three grandkids. One's only 6 months old, so we haven't got a lot of Disney, but no, we watch a lot of that. Do you binge TV shows?
yes, somewhat. Recently, well, I mean, you know this. Recently, it's been a lot of wrestling, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You don't have any series that you're like, "Ah, I gotta watch that."
No, not
No,
recently. Not recently.
gotcha. One thing that I've now with grandkids, and you like Disney, so is there a particular cartoon that would strike that you really liked, or maybe growing up liked?
Oh my gosh. So my one when I was really little was Roly Poly Oly.
Okay.
So that's an oldie. But then my other one that I was absolutely obsessed with was Kim Possible.
Oh,
Um,
yes, my
so
daughters love that.
I watched it all the time. And then before they had streaming services, and they took it off of like Disney Channel. I found out that they would have it on at 3 a.m. in the morning. So I would like wake up in the middle of the night and sneak out to go watch Kim Possible. So
Nice. Nice. I love cartoons. Maybe it's just I'm not real intelligent, I guess. So I watch all the Family Guys and the yeah, I watch some of the naughtier side of the cartoons, but then I love Bluey too. If you haven't seen Bluey, it's a really good one. So yeah, I watch cartoons all the time. South Park is probably how I live my life, so it's taught me a lot of good positive lessons and stuff. So if you were going to go on a vacation, and I know teachers get their summers off, so you get opportunities to take some of these, unless you're working on your masters or all this stuff, because
right.
and working 7 different part-time jobs to make up for the lack of pay. Where would you hit? Where would your favorite, or what's the biggest vacation spot? Something you're really looking forward to?
Well, if you ask any of my girls this most recent year, I went to Disney World for the first time ever. And so I am like constantly talking about it and itching to go back. So Disney World would be up there for sure. But bigger picture than that, I went to New Zealand when I was a senior in high
Ooh,
school. And I would love to go back, but that's like a huge, huge, huge trip. It's like almost exactly halfway around the world from here. So,
yeah.
uh, but I'd love to go back to New Zealand. It's amazing down there.
I've heard that. I've never traveled there, but I've heard New Zealand's and Australia both incredibly
Yeah.
beautiful countries and definitely something to see. What genre of music do you listen to?
I listen to a little bit of everything. So my playlist that I have is actually like called Feeling Eclectic because it's kind of all over the place. I listen to, like 80s music, some pop. Uh, I grew up on 90s country, so I listen to a lot of that. But I also love musicals, so sometimes I'll just be listening to Broadway music as well.
Do you ever get an opportunity to have, are you ever in charge? Do you get a Bluetooth to the speaker at all?
Oh yeah,
Or
the
do
girls hate it. The
they
girls
hate
hate
every
it.
minute of it, huh? Yeah, that's their worst days, is days that I've been in there early and put my music list on, then they hate life that day. But it's funny because sometimes songs that I have later are on their playlist, but
Yep.
they hate all of my music. Isn't that crazy? I don't
Yeah.
understand that either.
We have a coach
Um,
who, one of our other assistant coaches, he's very particular about his music. And so Jake gets us little Christmas gifts since our season is over Christmas. And for Coach Jet, he just got him a whole bunch of song skip coupons for practice. So,
nice. That's a great idea. I really like that. A lot of times I talk to, especially if we're talking wrestlers, we'll talk about pre-match ritual. Is that something that in your room you guys talk about, getting ready for a match and how to be prepared and maybe flipping that switch? And if you are, can you give us some secrets for the, because I know it's something that's hard for girls sometimes to do, is to flip the switch and become that different person on the mat.
yeah, we do talk about it a fair amount in our room. We're very fortunate that we have several girls in the room who have kind of developed into really great leaders and have some of that experience, and they are not shy about sharing what they do. But we talk a lot about like mantras and personal mantras, like what do you need to say to yourself before you go out on the mat? We also at the beginning of the season have all of our girls fill out a survey of what they need from us as coaches to support them in that pre-match timing. And so do you want someone to just be with you? Do you want someone to talk to you? Like that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we do talk a fair amount about what it's like before a match. And I don't know that a lot of our girls struggle with flipping the switch because a lot of our girls they go out on the mat and they're kind of vicious. So,
There you go.
they're pretty good at flipping that switch.
Maybe it's just our area. We're just too nice up in Northwest Iowa. Maybe that's the problem. Uh, so kind of going back to coaching philosophy and just different things, is there a phrase, like I'll word this, is there a phrase that your coach said to you a million times that you'll never forget? Is there something that Jake says all the time that is going to be stuck in your head sometime in the middle of the night? You're going to wake up thinking, well, Jake says this every time in practice. And do you have one of those?
Yeah, well, Jake kind of stole mine this year. And he
Ah,
would always talk before me in the huddle, so then I wouldn't have mine to say. But mine this year was control the things that you can control. So to me, what that means is, when you're getting ready for this match, in the weeks, the months, even the minutes before your match, control what you can control about that match. You can't control who your opponent is. You can't control, what moves, she or her go-to moves. You can't control how much she's practiced. What you can control is, your work ethic going into the practice room. You can control your effort. You can control your nutrition. Even down to in the minutes before your match, you can control your mental attitude going into the match, right? Like if you see this really tough girl that you're going up against and your attitude is, well, I don't know why I'm even wrestling because I'm going to lose, right? Like that's something you can control. And so that's really what I tried to get across to my girls this year and probably gonna hang on to it moving forward because it makes sense, not just, especially in the wrestling world, but outside of our wrestling season, even then, you can only control what you can control, right? And so,
yeah.
great kind of motto for, life. So,
It definitely is. I know growing up in the wrestling, anytime you had your choice, it was you're picking down. That's just what it is. So is that Solon's way of doing things, or has with girls wrestling has that evolved, and what are some of the things that you look at as a coach?
yeah. So, I would say in my first couple years of coaching, that is what we were kind of told to do was put girls down when it was our choice. So defer or down. But that has really, really shifted, especially this past year, but I would say the past year and a half. As our girls learn more and more and become more and more comfortable with moves and different positions, we've really kind of shifted that mindset to better fit, how our girls feel
Hmm.
wrestling. And so there are certain girls on our team that when it's our choice, we're going top. Or there are
Yep.
certain girls on our team when it's our choice, we know we've got a great takedown, so we're going neutral. We'll forego that, escape point or that, possible switch
Yeah.
to put our girls in a position where they're more confident.
And I even think with the 3-point takedowns, that 1 point escape doesn't mean maybe as much as it used to too. So yeah, I actually my philosophy changed. Oh, I don't think you might have remembered Tatum Shepard. I guess you probably would because you've been coaching a few years. Wrestled for her dad coaches with me, and it was actually AAU State when the last time it was in Wells Fargo, and she was actually down by a point and she chose top. And I was like, what is she doing? And he's like, well, if I tell her any different and she loses, then it's my fault. And I think with and at that point in time I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. So that's kind of how I adopted what we do. I a lot of times try to have them make the choice themselves, but I try to direct that choice a few times. um Talk a lot about go-to moves with girls. Is there something that you guys really focused on this year? I'll tell you, we focused on a couple of different things. Getting to shots without actually touching your knee, and then we really started working on leg riding and stuff. Is there something that was kind of the focus of the Solon room this year?
We spent a lot of time kind of revisiting and kind of relearning our stand up. So, kind of getting different perspectives. We brought in some different technicians that had different ways of teaching it. So, we went back to that. I would say we threw in a little bit of leg riding, but didn't focus on it. Another big one that we learned that was really, really instrumental for our upper weights was like quad potting. That was
Hmm.
something I hadn't taught in our room before. So some of those things, and not necessarily teaching it the same way again, but bringing different perspectives. We also tried to work a bit more this season on what can we do from an outside tie. So it's always, always, always you want to be inside
Uh-huh.
tie. Well, what can we do from the outside when the other girl is really good at getting back in? So.
Yeah. Because yeah, we always focus on getting inside and working. So yeah, finding some other way. A lot of similar things. We did also a lot of quad pod work this year. Kind of it actually became kind of our go-to type of getting away. Um, a lot of times I'll ask the girls this, and maybe you'll have a different perspective. Freestyle or folk style for high school girls wrestling?
I think in Coach Hatcher's ideal world, it'd be modified. I think that if we could introduce some of those modified rules to the high school season, I think that'd be awesome. Because I think that it, to some extent, does our girls a disservice to only do folk style. Because if they don't have the resources to wrestle club in the off season, then they are, you know, pretty unprepared for wrestling beyond high school. And so, anything we can do to, bridge that gap for them, I think would be awesome. But as an Iowa native, and someone who loves wrestling, I also don't want to just throw out folk style. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough choice. It really, I mean, and not that it's going to actually be a choice for a long time because it just I one of the questions I've asked or we've talked about even with officials, could you imagine freestyle has a lot more, oh, I don't how do you say it? A lot of things that just get called just because their perspective on the mat and stuff. And maybe you don't, I mean, like stalling is a call that, is in the ref's own perspective and stuff. But almost every call in freestyle is who initiated the move, who actually exposed back. Can you imagine some of the arguments that would
oh
happen
yeah.
just officiating or between the coaches and officials in a freestyle match and then people not understanding any of it? Oh my God, I couldn't even
Oh yeah.
imagine some of those. So we'll go into this. So since you kind of answered this question already, but magically, you've become the head of the NFHS in charge of wrestling rules. What rule would you change and why?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I think it would come down to, I think it'd be really fun to see what modified rules would do to high school wrestling. So, push out rule, neutral restarts, I think that'd be super, super interesting to play around with at the high school, like full season, perspective. So, um, I would enforce those.
Yeah, I agree with the step out. I think that would be a great addition to. I think it'd speed up matches a lot. Would take away. I know we were supposed to get stalling calls from going out of bounds this year, but it may have started that way. But by the midseason, those calls were not being made anyway. So I think if we had that step out, it would really increase action on the mat and stuff. So I 100% agree with you. Um, is there somebody that, as a girl, I know I watch a ton of videos and stuff all the time. Is there someone that you watch and aspire, you know, wow, I really like watching her wrestle, or I like watching him wrestle, or is there someone that you really like to watch and that you like maybe point your kids in that direction?
In general, I just watch a lot of wrestling. So a lot of collegiate wrestling, a lot of international wrestling. If you had asked me last year or a couple of years ago, my answer would have been Lily Luft. I thought she was so fun to watch wrestle. She was
Hmm.
just so dynamic. Now I really love watching Libby Dix wrestle too. I think
Uh-huh.
that, and I'm biased again, being from the same area, but I think that she wrestles in such a different way for her weight class, and that's really fun to watch. So,
Yeah.
those are kind of our like high school girls that I like watching. But yeah, otherwise I watch a ton of just, all over the place wrestling. So,
Yep. I love the internet because I mean I grew up in a time when we just had Iowa Public Television and you got what 10 duels a year. Then we had the VHS tape and we could watch those over and over. Now I can watch specific moves, specific wrestlers, all this stuff. I always try to point my kids. I don't know how much they actually do because I really think emulating some of your favorite athletes is a big part of big part of like how we grew up learning how to do sports is you try to emulate the pros. Um,
Well, not
I
only
have
that,
gone,
but
no, go ahead.
if I was gonna say if they're not hearing it from me as their coach, right? Then go watch go watch this athlete that you look up to, and maybe you'll listen to them sometimes
Yeah,
better than your coaches.
for sure. I think I've gone through everything I had on my list, and we fit right at about an hour, which is pretty typical for a conversation. Do you have any final thoughts on our conversation, on wrestling season, on what you see coming up?
Um, I guess it'd just be kind of your more general, like if you're thinking about getting involved in wrestling, give it a shot, right? Like even though all these girls out here seem to know exactly what they're doing or seem to have all this experience, they were not that long ago in your own shoes. And so if you're someone that's thinking about trying it out with no background, that's where I came from. And now I'm in, finished up my fourth year of coaching. And now I'm going to coach at Twin Rivers, which these are opportunities that I never would have imagined myself having when, Jake first approached me to join the coaching staff. And so just open yourself up to opportunities and just enjoy the ride, I guess. And there's a lot that wrestling can do for you as a coach, as a wrestler. There's a lot to learn from this sport and from this really way of life, as people put it. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I'm going to hit that stop button and go ahead and stay on for just a moment.